Well, welcome whoever is here to the March Planning Board meeting for the Village of Fayetteville. We have a pretty slim agenda tonight with one item on the agenda, and as we are starting this meeting, the applicant for that particular application is not here yet. So we're going to move around that and just consider our meeting minutes for last month's meeting. And then hopefully the applicant will show up. So Karen, I know Jennifer sent in some edits, and Karen, you went through those and sent out a fresh revision of the meeting minutes. And then I sent in some edits, and then I think Joanne sent in some edits. So I was able to read all of the other edits. I don't know which draft you're on yet, but I don't know if any others board members, sorry, I'm in the middle of a sneeze, were able to get their eyes on the meeting minutes since it was revised.
I've seen it since Joanne's notes.
I have to.
Bless you.
Bless you. I looked at them, Jane's edits and Joanne's. And, you know, the only thing I'd add, well, 2 points, I guess. So Jane did have comments as I had rewatched the part of the video. So I don't know if Jane, you wanted to be in there as well, because you had voiced comments. The others didn't. And the other is, I really actually don't think Josh Hawley was there.
Oh,
when you look at the attendees.
So are we attributing comments to Josh?
No comments attributed to Josh, but he was listed as signed in, which I assume was a prank.
I have no idea who the person is. I just went through the list of people that were actually
he's
active.
The senator. I'll leave it at that. U.S. Senator.
Okay.
I don't know. Is that really a Fayetteville citizen? I think someone was being smart.
I didn't give it any thought one way or the other. I took it at face
Karen.
value with the emails that were actually active.
I think someone was being funny. That's I don't know, but there might be Josh Hawley who lives in Fayetteville.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, I wasn't doing any.
I didn't see Elvis on there, so.
It looks like somebody has a comment, hand raised. Do you want me to?
Oh, you know, I don't know.
If you want to finish about the minutes, and then I can.
So Casey Clary has her hand raised. Let's, any other comments on the minutes first? On the most recent draft? Okay. Can I unmute Casey and
Greg is here. He's the applicant.
Greg is our applicant.
So let me hear. Casey was allowed to talk.
Yeah, Casey, if you have a comment you'd like to share.
I just wanted to say that Josh Hawley is a human being. He's in my house at the moment, not on screen. That's all.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry.
It hasn't been easy for Josh.
Oh, I'm really glad you clarified that, Casey. I apologize. I thought someone was being funny. So
it is kind of funny.
Sorry about
He's
that.
real.
Well, then by all means, leave him in as the list of attendees.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Casey. All
right.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Yeah, do we have a second?
Well, actually, wait, what about my issue that Jane had made comments and it's not memorialized in there?
Let's, if everyone's okay, let's hold this discussion for now, and let's invite the applicant to come forward with his sign application, and then we can come back and discuss.
Okay.
So Greg, if you wouldn't mind coming forward and.
All right.
There you are. Unmute
Hello,
yourself.
everyone.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. I tried calling in. Actually headed back from North Carolina, and it's kind of windy, so I had to pull over.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Greg. I was wondering if one of the phone numbers was yours.
Yes, but I downloaded the app real quick and got on the phone here.
All right, so do you have anything in particular that you want to share with us up front?
No, this is kind of a simple changeover for Circle K. They've done this at a lot of spots. They're pretty much the non-illuminated monument sign out front. They're just painting white cabinet and changing out the nice and easy to the Circle K. The signage will be 24 inches by 16 7/8 inches, non-illuminated. Right now existing, there's 2 signs there, so it'll go from 2 signs to 1 sign. So it's pretty simple, non-illuminated changeover for them.
Okay, not illuminated. Okay.
Not
lighting.
illuminated.
Right.
Yep.
Board members, any questions for Greg?
Hey, Greg, Scott, just one quick question. On the design package, the last page is titled light poles and bollards for a paint schedule, but I noticed in page 3, there's no comments about painting light poles. Can you just confirm that?
I cannot confirm that, Scott. I know they have a painting package in here and they plan on painting. I just don't have the painting package itself.
Okay.
I could probably get that to from the company that designed the packet and send that to you. Patterson Sign would, I can send that in to you.
I just wanted to make sure light poles aren't being painted the same bright red, that's all.
No. I doubt that. They're not touching the canopy. Other locations, they have red around the top of the canopy, but none of the poles or anything like that are painted bright red.
Okay, thanks.
But what I could do is I could get the painting package from them and send it to the village if you like.
Sure.
So I had asked Mike earlier, does everything comply with zoning regs, Mike?
Yes, Jennifer looks good.
Great, thanks. That's what I thought, but I wanted to hear your input.
If no more questions, do we have any? My understanding is this is a type 2 matter for seeker. Type 2 action, sorry, I'm not totally focused here. For seeker purposes. If we have any questions from the boards from any kind of, environmental impact, seeker purposes, we should discuss them now. If not, and if you're comfortable with keeping this as a type 2, we can do that. And if you have any other questions with this sign application, it seems pretty straightforward. Our code officer said all the requested signs are within, fit within what's allowed under the code. So, any seeker questions? Anybody? Nope. All right. Do I have a motion to accept? How about a motion? I think we don't need to identify. I don't need a motion to identify this as a type 2 action. We simply state for the meeting minutes that this is deemed a type 2 action. So then do we have a motion for this application?
I'll make a motion
And it is?
to approve the submission and seeker as proposed. Can we do it all at once since it's
Yes.
simple?
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Thank you. All right, Greg, your sign application has been approved. Now you can turn off your phone and safely get back on the road.
Wonderful. Thank you everyone for your time. I appreciate it.
All right. Safe travels.
Take care.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, so that covers our matter on the agenda tonight, and we we can move back to our meeting minutes. Jennifer raised the question about whether we want these meeting minutes, or she noted that these meeting minutes do not include any of the discussion that I had stated or any of my statements. I think relative to the EAF Part 2, because I do have some statement up front. So I don't know, Karen, if that was an overlook on your part.
No, I was trying to capture the essence of it, but the summary, it wasn't a transcript, it wasn't a verbatim.
Right.
So, but if you both have made revisions accordingly that you felt there needed to be a little bit more detail, and that's fine.
Yeah, and I did read the whole resolution is in here, so that's good. And I did not, unlike Jennifer, I did not listen to the recording, so I'm not going to recall exactly. But I trust Jennifer, if you think that there was enough there that I should give some consideration to it. It was more than a sentence or two.
I think that's okay. My comment was actually more that after I made some comments and Joanne made comments, I recalled that you had comments as well. That was
Yeah.
the one thing that I thought was missing, because otherwise I think Karen
Yeah.
did a great job with the minutes.
Yeah.
So what statement do you feel was lacking?
I think she was saying that in
There's
addition to voting, she was indicating that she agreed with everything that had been being said. And I think there might have been something more. I was getting a little burned out on rewatching the whole thing at that point, quite honestly. It had already.
Right.
So
Should we table this and let Jane listen to that segment?
yeah, we're going to have to do that because I don't recall. But I am looking at the minutes right now, and after there's a paragraph of member Bybee, and then it goes on to member Gagliano, and then it goes on to our vote. And there's not even a summary there of member Rice. So
That's exactly what I was talking about.
So why don't I take some time tonight and listen to the recording. And then if I feel the need to add some, some language to the meeting minutes themselves, I can send that out to everybody so you can all see that. I don't know when, I don't think we can then approve these until April, but if everyone can respond and let us know if you're comfortable with what the additions are, then I think Karen can go ahead and post these minutes as draft minutes until they're approved.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I've got some homework tonight. Let's move on to East Genesee Street. I want to bring everybody up to date where that's at.
Specifically 547,
Specifically 547, yes.
considering the other applicant was also East Genesee.
Oh, right. That's not the only, yeah, there are other businesses on East Genesee Street.
Okay.
547 East Genesee application. Dan Reisman and I met with the applicant and his engineer, Matt Naparella, Wednesday, was it, Dan? Thursday.
Thursday, I think.
No, I think it was
No,
Wednesday. It was Wednesday afternoon. The four of us met at Village Hall for purposes of reviewing our decision and our comments on part 2 of the EAF, so that I'm sorry, part 3 of the EAF, so that we could develop a scoping outline in preparation, in a scoping document in preparation for the DEIS. While we were going through part 3, oh, hang on. We came up with some questions for everybody. And Matt took the time to put our meeting down into, summary notes. And I'll share those with you. Dan and I haven't had a chance to review them and really respond to them. But once those are final, we'll share those with you. But I wanted to direct everyone's attention to part 3, specifically because we had some confusion. All right. I'm confusing my parts here tonight, so please bear with me. Part 3 is the piece that is the section that we signed. I signed and said essentially that we had some of these concerns with part 2. So that takes you back to part 2. So let's go to part 2. This is the one that has this 18 different questions that we all walked through very specifically, very diligently. And I don't want to walk through every single question because most of them are very clear, and none of us had any concerns with what they thought we said and what we thought we said. But there are some questions which we have some concerns on. Question number 7. Do you guys have part 2 in front of you? Can you get it? Maybe
See if I can.
can you put it up?
Yeah, I wasn't, didn't realize we'd be going through it. Let me get it.
No, I know. I didn't say anything. It's not that big a deal. I mean, I can read it to everyone. It's not it's not a book of information, but question number 7 is with respect to impact on plants and animals. And it says the proposed action may result in loss of flora or fauna, and we get to say yes or no. We said yes. And it is because of this subsection G that says the proposed action may substantially interfere with nesting, breeding, foraging, or overwintering habitat for the predominant species that occupy or use the project site. So the question here is, my recollection is that we had identified that specifically with reference or with an understanding that this site is adjacent to Green Lake State Park, and that there may be some bird habitat and other habitat not that is shared between the two properties. And I just wanted to confirm that and what others recall on this particular question, why we said moderate to large impact for subsection G.
That is my recollection. But I mean, in order to say definitively, I'd have to go watch that part of it again. But that was definitely my recollection. And I think there was discussion by community members that raised those points as well.
Yes, I recall one of the speakers mentioned that the bird sanctuary component of Green Lakes, which is very near there.
Okay. So so then we're all thinking the same way. And since I'm going to listen to the tape anyway, I will confirm that is what we're thinking. And this is important because this leads to the next question is what materials, what documentation, what evidence, what other items do we need as a board to be able to further assess this potential impact that this proposed action may have, right? And it is understood, at least on my part, that wildlife doesn't live by, cultural boundaries, right? We all experience that with having deer and, maybe fox or coyote in our backyard, right? So wildlife doesn't listen to our cultural boundaries. But if there is a particular bird sanctuary or some other kind of special area in Green Lake State Park, then I think we would need to get that identified and understand its relevance and its proximity to this particular property, which then leads to, if it is adjacent, if it is relevant, then we would need to understand what actions are necessary to mitigate any potentially negative impact, right? So I can't get to that last question until I understand where is this habitat, what is it, and where is it, like physically, geographically, where is it? So I talked to Matt about this, and Matt reminded us that he did submit a teeny He did a T&E search and there are no threatened or endangered species on this property, right? It's not necessarily a T&E search of Green Lakes. So I need some guidance on what additional research documentation is warranted, you know, for us to better understand how to address this particular question.
So Jane, this is Sarah.
Yeah.
I think what we could, and I don't know how much work we're supposed to put into it or if Matt's supposed to do it, but the woman who spoke seemed knowledgeable. So I think I would start with her and say, who runs this conservatory and could they write us a letter about what kind of species live there and what they nest in and whatever. So we would even know if this was a true issue.
Okay. Okay, that's question number 7. The next question is number 10. These are only questions that we needed a little bit of clarification on. 10 is impact on historic and archaeological resources. And we identified the subsection of importance is subsection C. Not A or B, but C. And so I'm confused, actually. And so I need your input, your memory. So subsection C is the proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an archaeological site, not included on the New York SHPO inventory. I'm not familiar of an archaeological site.
My recollection is that it was not about archaeological, that it was about the proximity to the East Genesee National Historic Register District.
Right, so that would be.
Right, and as part of that also, especially Scott's comments, that there's a whole assemblage of wood frames that are adjacent except for the, I keep wanting to call it the Cookie Mart, the Circle K. But anyway, the gas station. But until you get to the gas station heading west to east, there's that whole assemblage and they're all lined up and they're all wood frames. And I think that is, and on the other side of the street actually as well, until you get to the car dealership. So that was my recollection of how this came about.
So Jennifer, that's my recollection as well, but that would call for a moderate to large impact on either A and or B and not C.
I can only think that maybe we were thinking with C, who knows? But I don't remember beyond that. I don't recall archaeological per se, but I don't know. It would have to be rewatched.
No, I recall you talking about the wood frames. I think that may be a typo.
Yeah, I think it's a typo. All right, that's what I think. That's what I actually think Matt agrees with us. But what I'll do is I will, again, I got to watch it anyway. So I will watch it and I'll pay close attention to our conversation around question number 10.
So on this one, then A would be moderate to large, or where, I don't know where, we can't see on the screen. Where did these all shake out then? If C maybe actually is a no after all.
C would be no or small.
Right.
A would be moderate to large. The proposed action may occur wholly or within substantially contiguous to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites or New York State Historic Preservation Office archaeological site inventory. I think my recollection is that our conversation all had to do with historical places or designated historical area. But
I think this is where that same, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I want to say that same woman, whose name I don't know, I'm sorry, also was talking about the historical importance of Green Lakes, but I may be wrong. It's, I don't know, it's been a month.
Maybe not a SHPO though.
No. Not included in SHPO inventory.
I don't know.
That's why I think it's A or B. I think it's a typo. I don't think it's C.
Well, I think that part of the meeting bears rewatching.
Yeah.
That person's name is in our meeting minutes was Rebecca Rolnick.
Yes, I was just looking that up.
Okay.
That's the person. So
Yeah.
she seemed knowledgeable and maybe able to help.
Was she the one that was somehow related to ESF?
I was just going to say, I
Yes.
think identified as an ESF grad.
Yeah. Or maybe professor. It's hard for me to remember, but when Jane watches, she'll hear it again.
No, I agree. There was an ESF affiliation.
Yeah.
And maybe she was aware of some geological feature that we're not thinking of, or archaeological feature.
It's archaeological. That's what has me. Geological, I get it. Historical.
Yeah. But because the first sentence under 10 is adjacent to historic or archaeological, maybe we were just looking at historic throughout. But you're right, when you read it, it's specific to an archaeological site, not included in the.
Yeah. So I think it has to be A or else it's not, because I don't think there's anything archaeological.
Well, there's none that I know of, and it's supposed to be say not included in SHPO inventory. So,
Could we have been referencing like the cemetery or even the senior center? I can't think of anything that would be on or off of SHPO's list but a concern there.
No, I think it was the houses.
Okay.
all right, I'll listen hard. I'll let you all know.
Thank you, Jane.
And it may have been a reference, if I may say, to what was answered in part 1 by the applicant, where
That's the other
there
thing.
was an identification of potential historic areas within a 5-mile radius.
So that's why I still think it's A, Karen. I don't think it's C.
Right.
Potential.
This is what was given to me. So, I don't know about the check marks as far as that. Casey has her hand up.
Casey, if you have something to add to our inquiry, that'd be great.
Hi. The applicant answered the question and listed several addresses. And those addresses, it was not clear why those were selected and not others. If you look at those particular addresses, they're listed in the Historic Resources Survey that was completed in 2018 with Department of Interior and state funds. The maps in Appendix 1 are helpful for understanding properties that are eligible for listing, and there are a great many of them. There are more properties in that area than were listed by the applicant, and it was not clear what the methodology was for why those were chosen and not all of them. The whole Huntley Park area was identified as potentially eligible as a district because the Huntley, and it's a very interesting study, which I think might be worth looking at. But I don't think that any further steps were taken. I'm not aware of them, but the village perhaps could tell us when that study was completed, and though that long list of properties was identified, were any further steps taken to add that information to the state Register of Historic Places. And it is the question of eligibility for a great number of those properties, including 547 itself, which the applicant did list.
There hasn't been any other action taken since Jesse Ravage did that reconnaissance survey on behalf of the Historic Commission in 2018.
Excuse me.
With her suggestions of potential districts. don't remember off the top of my head the criteria. Part of it is probably the age and how intact a lot of the homes are within that area to fit a certain age. So this was uploaded. The survey is on Chris, which is one of SHPO's sites, but nothing has been submitted to formally nominate, like to be
Right.
on the National Registry.
Right. Well, it doesn't have to be, that's why I go back to A. I think that's what we were all focused on. And I think it was just a typo that C got check marked instead. All right. Again, I'll listen to the recording and to what we were specifically discussing about question number 10 and confirm which one of these subsections we were considering to be moderate to large impact. So those were the only questions that we needed some clarification on. All the other questions, we didn't need clarification on those on our response to those questions, but what we need at this point is an understanding of materials needed from the applicant to help us further investigate the potential for these impacts on the remaining questions, right? So most specifically, I think for all of us, it's questions 16, 17, and 18. What do we need from the applicant that would help us determine the potential impact as discussed in questions 16, 17, and 18? And what I shared with the applicant, specifically with 17 and 18, I think 9 is closely related to 17 and 18 as well. That's about visual impact, right? So anyway, what I said is they've heard from all of us that the current site layout, the current concept is not in keeping with the character of the village or the neighboring properties or the adjacent neighborhoods. And as such, is not necessarily consistent with our comprehensive plan, our guidelines, or our code. And that an alternative concept, an alternative layout is what I would need to determine whether what they are proposing could in fact be consistent with.
I would also say 13, transportation, and 15, noise, odor, and light are also all completely wrapped up in that whole concept of alternative site plans, which we've been asking for since fall of 2019.
That's fine. That makes sense, especially with light. You know, the light impacts are definitely going to be informed by the site layout, right?
Right.
So,
and the impacts to the neighbors and
Right,
the transportation, because as designed, it's totally auto dominated.
right. So it's one thing to say we'd like an alternative layout, an alternative concept, an alternative proposal, but I think it would be important for us to also perhaps list the characteristics, the features that are not being addressed right now, so that they will consider those in their alternative concept. Does that make sense to people?
Mm-hmm. I mean, just looking back at the comp plan and what that image was shown in that for what a site plan could look like there, that would meet the goals of, you know, many community workshops and meetings and all that. The buildings, when you look at that image, they actually relate to each other. And I think that that's something that's really important. And that's a way to begin to address the comp plan design guidelines, buildings that actually do relate to each other. As
Buildings
opposed to,
relate to each other, and is it just that, or do they relate to the street?
well, I think it's both, but and again, I didn't know we were going to get into this level of detail. I would have had all my documents in front of me. So I don't have the comp plan image right in front of me, but at any rate, I do recall that there's definitely sort of a rhythm to them and they sort of relate to each other. Whereas I think one could argue that the site plan we've seen to date again and again is 3 buildings that are doing their own thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the thing I recall from the plan was it talked about campus-like. So it could be multiple buildings, but that somehow they have, you know, some architectural similarity. Maybe they have some functional relationship with each other, that kind of thing. And I think I don't know what to do with the proposed grocery store, because I understand why they want that to be one building and not a campus, you know. But I think there is more flexibility with the senior living, that they could do other things with that building that would relate to the street and the neighborhood and maybe the path down to the brook and stuff a lot more than what they propose now.
Okay. To Jennifer's point, I did not intend for this to be the only moment where we had to get our information out. I wanted to share this with you. I need to review the meeting minutes that Matt prepared. Dan needs to review them. We need to confirm them and share them with you. And I think what I'd like, though, is to have each one of you give this some consideration. You all have part 2. And then share with everybody your it's not your concern so much as it is we need to provide guidance and what is necessary to help us make a final secret decision, right? And that's really important. So the easy one for me is this question number 7 about plants and flora and fauna. Let's do some research. Let's find out if there is a conservation area, sanctuary, some kind of special something where we have unique birds. And if that is in Green Lakes, where is it and how is that relate to this?
I just ran the DEC mapper on it.
Yeah.
And it's saying that we have natural communities near this location. You know, the color is over the top of the site. And significant natural community, not, you know, it shows in color bubbles, so it's not exactly a property line, but it's around the Green Lakes pathway coming this way. So there probably is, like, we should look at how they answered the questions, because when you do the seeker through the DEC form, it actually answers most of the questions for you. So if we look at part 1, if they didn't take them, we could run it ourselves.
Right.
Take a look at what they are, and that's going to inform what DEC sees anyway.
Right. That's great, Joanne.
So there's multiple mappers you can run. I just did a fast one. You know, I just hit it takes a minute. You have to hit all the layers, but you know, the consultant should have done this, but you know, and I'm sure they did.
He said they did.
Yeah. So it probably, if we looked at the part 1, it probably says that there is flora or fauna in the area, because it's coming up as natural community.
He said it doesn't, so we're gonna have to double check on that.
Okay.
I'm gonna let Casey comment. She's got her hand up. Casey. There you are. You want to unmute yourself, or do I have to do that? There you
Hello,
go.
I'm sorry.
That's
I do that
okay.
100% of the time. Some of this relates to also the proximity to Green Lakes identified in part 1. They say it's a mile, but it also depends on where you measure that from. So Green Lakes is very close to the edge of this property, as evidenced by their comment of connecting to it through trail. That there's a 1,000 acre bird conservation area that adjoins, that is above the site. You can see the site from the bird conservation area. And there are many species of birds for whom this is a very important piece in the New York State system. This is the largest grasslands bird conservation area in New York State. And I too don't have all the things in front of me, but it's very easy to find by Googling about the bird conservation area, and also perhaps referencing the Green Lakes Master Plan.
Okay. Casey, out of curiosity, is this grassland area? Is that in the upper area, just on like kind of on the backside of, the housing development where a lot of folks go up and walk their dogs and bike
Yeah.
and ski?
Brookside.
Am
But
I-
is-
Yeah,
it's up
Brookside.
by, isn't it by Alverna Heights up there?
Can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so yes, Jane, if you go to Aladdin,
Right.
and you went up the hill there,
Right.
you go up 2 levels of hills,
Right,
you turn slightly to the right, you're in the bird conservation area.
okay,
And there's a
And
new kiosk there. There's a very nice new
Yes,
kiosk there,
yep.
identifying it all toward the back corner.
okay.
Yeah, and it's
Yep.
not quite at Alverna Heights, Sarah, but
Mhm.
Alverna Heights is a wonderful addition too.
I know where you're talking about, Casey. It is a great area.
And
And
if I also might add, the Green Lakes Parks Master Plan identifies the western vista of Green Lakes as being something that they want to develop further. The western vista is a 5-mile vista from that same area, and it would look over a 400-car parking lot. So the lights are a difficulty for the birds, and the whole idea of the vista being disrupted by this development is something worth looking at as well.
right, we actually talked about that from a visual assessment perspective. And I'm pretty, I'll talk with Matt again. I think he knows exactly this area because that's the area I was referencing. And I think it's really important to identify very strategic viewpoints from up there right now during the winter.
Mhm.
And that way we can get a sense of what really can be seen and cannot be seen from this particular property. And that would help us all out. So that speaks to, I don't remember the number now, but that's a prior question that had to do with visual sensitivity.
I think that's 9, aesthetic resources.
Yeah, aesthetic, yep. Right, so, okay, so, yeah, I guess everybody has a little bit of homework. Go back to those questions on part 2. Understand, our response and send to me your thoughts on what you think would be important to have. I'll collect that information and work with the applicant to finalize a scoping document, which will lead to the development of a DEIS. Okay.
So I have a question, Jane,
Sure.
which is, so after last June's meeting, I think there was discussion about you, and I'm not sure whom else, getting together with the developer and the consultant about, I want to say this was suggested about alternative site plans and maybe some kind of working session or something like that. We have a few, obviously, site planners here on the board. And so I'm kind of curious to know, is the understanding now at this point that the applicant will come up with some alternative site plans on their own? Are they looking for specific feedback? Because I thought that feedback might have been given back in July, but then of course we saw the same exact site plan. So I kind of want to close the loop on that. Like, are they wanting specific ideas? I don't know if
Not
it's even
ideas.
appropriate for us to give them.
It's not appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate for us to give ideas, give design suggestions. But it is very appropriate for us to say, for example, based on our community character and functionality, it's extremely important that we have a pedestrian and bicycle safe.
Okay, great. Well, I
site
think
layout.
that's fine. I think we covered that. Okay.
And with respect to character of structures and location of structures, I also felt it was really important to understand real potential for uses and actual development of the complex. So I suggested that if they don't know what they're going to do with buildings 2 and 3, building number 1 being the grocery store, if they don't really know what they're going to do with buildings 2 and 3, why don't include it on phase 1? because if you don't know what you're going to do, don't tell me something. You can tell me anything, but if you don't have a hard plan for that, and that's not really in your game plan, then it's not part of phase one. If you have something that you know that you're going to have and you're going to move forward and you want to move forward, but it's going to be phase two, that's okay. Let us know. It's important that we, as best as we can, make a full decision with respect to this entire property. But again, don't include particular uses and give them names and then say sometime in the future. That to me, that's not a game plan. That's just a marketing,
Okay,
that's just not a game plan.
clarifying.
So they're going to take a hard look at that. As Sarah said, there are potential other opportunities with these other buildings, whether they actually are included or not, or whether something else is included. There may be a higher use than what's being proposed. So to me, all of that's, I guess, on the table, so to speak.
Thanks for clarifying.
Any questions? From a timeline perspective, Dan, I think you and I should take the next day or two and get our comments back on the meeting notes back to Matt, so he can wrap those up so we can get those to this board and then move forward with both the applicant and Dan and I are really very focused on making sure that our scoping, and all scoping means is we are considering all of the topic areas, subtopic areas that the board needs some attention given to for us to make our decision. It's the whole point of this, is we said we don't have enough information and there's these potential impacts out there and they're potentially big impacts. So we really need more information so we can really understand these potential impacts and whether any mitigation is necessary or not. And when I say mitigation, maybe it's a little redesign, a little this or something like that. That's where we're headed. We need to make those decisions. What information do we need to make those decisions? We want to work very closely with the applicant to put a solid scoping document, a scoping effort together so that when they do move into the DEIS, we all know what direction we're going in, right? I don't want it to be vague. I don't want a lot of questions out there. I think the only way for us to get through this in a very healthy, productive manner is to get specific. We don't need the client to be, we don't need to push him into final site plan. We haven't even gotten to site plan. So we are balancing that act. We don't need to get into a lot more engineering or anything like that. I do think though that we have some serious concerns with the proposed concept plan right now. And we've mentioned all the reasons why. I just need to collect those reasons so we don't forget one of them or overlook one of them. Okay. I know, Devin, I know that you're attending tonight. I want to give you an opportunity if you have anything you want to add or question you have for us tonight. Feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Oh, there you go. Go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for talking about this tonight, and thanks again to Jane and Dan for meeting with us this past week. One thing as you're going through this stuff, you really need to read the questions very, very thoroughly, because if you'll notice, the seeker form says specifically it's either within the project area or adjacent to, not across, the way or over there or anything like that. They use very specific language. So you have to, I guess, give us direction with respect to that language. you know, when you're doing it. That's all I would suggest, that, you know, please pay attention to that kind of stuff. As far as the historic, and I'm kind of drilling down on a couple of those items. One is the historic issue. It says specifically whether they are already identified or are on a specific list by the state. It's not like, are they eligible? That's a different question. That's not the question that's being asked in part two. So it's not like it's a trick question on a quiz, but it is. You know, you got to be real specific, because those are the things that we need to identify and answer. So I'm trying to help you to help me at the same time. So I think the more specific, Jennifer, getting back to your question on work sessions with the developer, the more input we can get with respect to what the board feels is necessary as it relates to the comprehensive plan, design guidelines, those things. And I understand that is all of that stuff is site plan stuff, not seeker.
Mhm.
But on the same token, a lot of this stuff is kind of wrapped up in site plan and overlaps into seekers. So we're trying to work with everybody to, you know, to provide a project that makes sense for the village, and checks the boxes, and is something that all of us are proud of when it's done. That's our goal. I think at the end of the meeting, we kind of wrap things up, and I shared some thoughts with Jane and with Dan on what I kind of saw, you know, where I'd like to see things headed with respect to it. And it seemed to be, we all seem to be kind of somewhat of the same mindset, and I'll let them share that with you offline. But anyways, it's, I appreciate your help. And again, any specifics that you can gather or give us is necessary for us to be able to answer them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, guys. I don't have anything else to say, and I've got a recording to listen to. So any thoughts or questions from anybody? Nope. Okay.
Motion,
Well,
motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn. All right. Do I have a second?
I'll
Jennifer?
second it.
Joanne, very good. All right, guys, hang in there. Don't get blown away, and stay tuned. Dan and I'll keep you posted. Our progress with scoping. Our goal is to really get that well understood the next week or so. And so maybe take some time tonight if you're already doing it, and send us some information. Okay.
Thank you for your time doing